Thanks for having me.
Make no mistake, the Fed's first ever press conference yesterday was a direct result of the growing anger towards the central bank. Yet, what we learned from Uncle Ben is that the Fed has no shame in printing away all the wealth that private individuals have worked so hard to produce. Some say, I among them, end the Fed. That's exactly what my next guest, Michigan Republican Congressman Justin Amash, wants. Congressman Amash, it's a pleasure. Welcome back to Freedom Watch.
Judge, thanks for having me on again. It's a pleasure to be here.
Did we really learn anything? Did you learn anything yesterday from this historic first open give and take that the chairman of the Federal Reserve engaged in with the press? Or did he just give the same standard Princeton professor answers with technical language and jargon that very few people can understand?
I don't think we learned anything. I think it's more of the same. And that's what we've been seeing out of this Fed, and I agree with your assertion that we need to end the Fed.
Before we end the Fed, I think that a couple things will happen, and I want to ask your thoughts on it. I think that a majority of members of both houses of Congress, I don't know that the president agrees with this, will vote to audit the Fed. Do you think that will happen? You know it happened in the Congress before you were there, and then something happened in the conference committee, and it died. But there is numerically a majority in the Senate, and there is clearly numerically a majority in the House for a full-fledged, independent, no-holds-barred audit of everything the Fed has done in the past 98 years. Question, will that take place?
I'm hopeful it will. There's a lot of support for it, as you mentioned. We have a lot of co-sponsors on the Audit the Fed bill. It's the first step on getting some real transparency in the Fed. When we have the Fed chairman come out and for the first time give a press conference, it shows how little transparency there is, and things need to change there. Auditing the Fed is the first step. I
don't want to crow about this, but it was a lawsuit filed by Fox Business Network and others, which resulted in a decision by the United States Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit, the Federal Intermediate Appeals Court that governs New York City, which ordered the Federal Reserve, for the first time in history, Congressman Amash, to comply with the Freedom of Information Act and spill forth all the documents involved in one or two transactions that occurred in 2008. They didn't want to do it. They appealed it to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court said we're not going to hear the appeal. So I think it's things like that. Judges beginning to look at the Fed as just another agency. The Congress beginning to look at the Fed like, my God, look at the power these people have. We know more about the CIA than we do about them. And I think the Fed is hearing what we're hearing.
Absolutely. And it's an unelected body. It controls a lot of our livelihood. When we talk about things like Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and we're talking about reforms, the Fed continues to devalue our money, continues to print money. We're having cuts to our livelihood by the fact that the dollar is weaker.
Not you, but other members of Congress want the government to spend more money than it takes in. And whenever it needs more money, it goes to the Fed. And the Fed creates the money out of thin air, and that devalues the money that we all have. What I've just described is Economics 101. What I've just described is junior-level high school economics. Question, why doesn't the rest of the Congress understand that?
I think there are a number of them that do understand it, but we live in a body that's very political. And unfortunately, I think making the tough choices has not been something that people are willing to do yet. But the more we have transparency, and that's why I use my Facebook page to get the word out to the public about what we're doing, the more transparency we have, the more accountability. The more accountability, the more we'll see members of Congress doing the right thing.
Your Facebook page, Congressman Amash, if you don't mind my own opinion about it, is extraordinary. Because you do something that, as far as I know, no other member of Congress does. You explain on your Facebook page every single vote you make, even the abstentions you explain. I applaud you for that. Why do you do that?
I think it's critical. Our public needs to understand what we're doing. For too long, the American people haven't been able to see behind the curtain in Congress, and I think it's time we showed them what's going on. The more people see what we're doing, the more I'm convinced people are going to demand constitutional government, limited government, economic freedom, individual liberty, the principles that our founders believed in. They're going to want those things as they see the kind of waste and fraud that goes on in our government.
Congressman Amash, thank you for your fidelity to the Constitution, and thanks for joining us. And thanks for that Facebook page, and thanks for joining us on Freedom Watch.
Thanks so much, Judge.